So, good afternoon, parents, students, and Newbie Education Canadian Partner Boarding School representatives. My name is Anne-Marie Bebe, and I'm the Student Placement Manager at Newbie Education. I'm going to be the moderator of this event. This is a virtual information session. Newbie decided to organize this event to provide an interactive forum between our partner boarding schools in Canada and Nigerian families. In light of the global pandemic and the disruption and uncertainty that has resulted, a lot of Nigerian families have questions and concerns that they would like to be addressed. They want to gain insight into how boarding schools in Canada have adapted to changes and challenges caused by COVID. And, they're really seeking reassurance that international students will be able to continue with their study programs uninterrupted, and their study ambitions and needs will be supported by Canadian boarding schools. So this session will comprise of presentations by our 4 panelists. And following the presentations, we will then have a Q&A session where participants would be able to voice whatever questions that they have. I'm now going to introduce our 4 panelists. So we've got John Holmes from Trinity College School, and John is the Associate Director of Admissions. We've also got Joanne Carruthers from Stanstead College, who's the Director of Admissions. We've got Tracy Culp from Albert College, who's the Senior Enrollment Management Associate at the college. And we've got Luke Seaman from Appleby College, who's the Executive Director, Admissions. So thank you to all our panelists for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend the morning with us. I know it's morning in Canada. And we're so honored to have you here. So I would also like to speak on some house rules. So basically, each panelist has 10 minutes to deliver their presentation. And also for the parents and students, we've got a Q&A box here. So you can just type whatever questions you have for the panelists. And once we have the panel discussions, I will then read out the questions to the panelists for them to answer. We've also got Lisa Wang from Great Lakes College of Toronto. Hello, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm now going to pass on to the Newbie Education Executive Director, Mrs. Rose Omonubi.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for the introduction. As Anne-Marie has introduced, my name is Rose Omonubi, Executive Director of Newbie Education. I'm just going to give you a very, very brief overview of Newbie for those of you that are watching outside Lagos or outside Abuja that haven't heard of Newbie Education. That's for your benefit, because I know that Newbie Education is a household name in Lagos and Abuja. Newbie Education is one of the leading educational agencies in Nigeria. And we are a leader when it comes to boarding schools, counseling, and placements. Our focus is to get quality Nigerian students to study destinations of their choice. So we cover many destinations. We cover the UK, we cover Canada, USA, Ireland for boarding schools. And we have been in this business for over 16 years, placing students from GCSE to PhD level. Newbie works closely with top secondary schools in Nigeria and sixth form colleges, having consulted for about 3 of them. And we do some career counseling in schools as well. Our counselors are, our team is made up of counselors, educationists, marketers, marketing-driven counselors that have sound knowledge of Nigerian education system and the study destinations of our students. There are many educational agencies in Nigeria, but NUBI is distinguished by the quality of counsel that we offer to our parents and students, and our ability to create and maintain healthy relationships with both our families and partners, our partner institutions. As a result, NUBI's promotional publicity has increased through word of mouth and confidence of our parents, which has contributed immensely to our success story. We are very passionate about the students that we place, about the parents. We work very hard to assist them in realizing their dreams. And by doing so, we have partnered with one of the leading banks in Nigeria, FCMB. And FCMB is promoted this event. They are our sponsors. FCMB has 200 branches in Nigeria and over 3.7 million customer base. And they have marketed this to their premium customers. So we are saying thank you to FCMB. And as we go ahead now, we believe that your questions will be answered, because what prompted us to start this is that we scheduled a fair for March, but the fair couldn't hold. We had to cancel it because of the pandemic. And this pandemic came with great uncertainties. It came with anxieties. So many parents are confused. Some of them don't know whether they are going in September, whether they are not going, whether it's going to be online, whether it's going to be face-to-face, and asking us questions that we cannot answer. And that we thought that is a forum for the stakeholders to be together so that they can ask all the questions and you can answer all the questions, and everybody will now be in a position to make up their mind what they want to do. So I wish you a very informative session. Thank you. And Marie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ma. So we are now going to get started with our presentations. And if we could please have Luke Simon from Appleby College.
Sure, I'll try my best. Just a couple of really quick things. It's first to say thank you to NUBI Education for putting this on. I think the fact that you realize just how difficult a position families are facing right now, and doing something to inform them is such a great initiative. So thanks on behalf of all of us for inviting us. I will say, and Joanne can certainly echo this as acting head this past year, there's still going to be a lot of things that are unknown, and by all means we'll try our best to answer to the best of our ability. But even us as school representatives are continuously getting information from our provincial and federal governments as well to help figure out the picture for the coming year and beyond. So with that being said, I know I have 10 minutes to try to cram a whole bunch of things in, so I'll do my best. It's been a while since I've presented on Appleby, specifically in a 5-minute period. So we'll see what we can do here. There, is my screen sharing?
Yes, it is. So we can see, yes, we can see the prospectus.
Perfect. Wonderful. Great. So my name is Luke Simon, Executive Director of Admissions at Appleby College. Appleby is a co-ed day and boarding school, it's a 60-acre campus in the town of Oakville, Ontario. So Oakville is just west of the city of Toronto. It's part of the Greater Toronto area. Oakville's quite a quiet town, but quite a popular one, and we're situated here on the shores of Lake Ontario. Some really quick facts. It's on the larger side of schools, so there's 765 students. About 30% of that is boarding, so 275 boarding beds from grades 9 to 12. Currently, we have students from 52 countries, so it is quite a diverse place. Academically, and something I'll speak to a little bit later, we're an advanced placement school that offers advanced, the AP Capstone program. Very successful in terms of university placement, which I'll show you a bit later. It is very much a university placement school. We do have a second campus as well. There's the main campus here in Oakville, but we also have part of an island in northern Canada where all of our students do some outdoor education and leadership education. So in terms of co-curriculars, very wide array. All students every year are required to do 3 co-curriculars, 1 each term, as well as 1 or more clubs that last the year. Lots of different options there. As you can see, there are over 65 different teams or athletic opportunities alone. In addition to that, there's quite a wide array of arts, service, and whatnot. Appleby is part of CASE, as the other representatives here are. So the CASE is an association of independent schools that are sort of governed and audited by a central body. But we're also a member of TABS, World Leadership Schools, Round Square, and a member of the G30. Just a quick slide to show where our students go after graduation. Generally speaking, you're looking at about 60 to 70% of students staying in Canada, about 20% to US universities, and about 10 to 15% to the UK generally, although here and there we'll see students going to one of the universities in continental Europe as well. Some of the key programmatic things at Appleby, we have a really strong focus in what we call global leadership. In my mind, it's a couple of things. It's global education and leadership that are combined in certain intervals. So to do that, in addition to meeting all of the Ministry of Ontario requirements, every course, every program has to integrate a measure of cross-cultural learning and global learning into the curriculum. We have an additional diploma called the Global Leadership Diploma, which requires quite a significant research project that's done in concert with a faculty advisor. And as of a couple of years ago, we actually implemented a mandatory global experience for every student before they graduate. So as part of their tuition to Appleby, they have one global experience, which each year there are anywhere from a dozen to 20 different either 2-week service or intercultural trips or international leadership conference or exchanges that students would go on. As I mentioned, students from 53 countries. In our boarding program, 50% of students are Canadian. Part of that is a result of, as part of our university preparatory philosophy, all of our grade 12 students, even if they're local, do live in boarding to get those life experiences, which is really helpful, certainly in terms of international student integration. As I mentioned, we have the Northern Campus experience, so students do have a pretty unique opportunity to to get to experience a part of Canada that many others don't. Very academically challenging school. We're one of the two largest advanced placement schools in Canada in terms of the number of advanced placement offerings, as well as the number of students writing AP exams, and very successful in terms of capstone completion. So again, really strong preparation for top US and Canadian schools. And what I'll be speaking a little bit about, and by no means am I an expert on the subject, but Appleby is certainly a leader in terms of the idea of positive education, which we'll see further, and for many years has put a lot of emphasis on the development of student well-being. So the topic that I've been asked to speak a little bit about is this one about ensuring positive mental health and well-being for students. Again, not an expert. I am a lowly admissions representative, but certainly this is a hallmark of Appleby and its programming. Ultimately, without strong mental health, there is no learning. And as you can see, focusing on the health of students really does allow students to perform at their best, not just in terms of emotional well-being, but academically as well. This is a big area of science, of research over, I'd say, probably the past 20 years to show the benefits of mental well-being. And we are in a very peculiar age, or our students are certainly in a very peculiar age where they have more pressures than at any time before that have the potential to trigger poor mental health. And whether that's increased competition to job market and top universities, to the threats of social media, it really makes a really intentional approach to mental well-being ever more important. And I will say that this isn't just Appleby. I will talk about Appleby specifically because that's what I know the best. But I'm sure that all of my colleagues from other case schools will have similar types of stories as well. I know it's certainly an area within the independent school world that there's a lot of development happening. So generally speaking, well before the pandemic hits, this has been an area of concern or an area of focus for us. One of the hallmarks of this has been, as of 3 years ago, we've become one of the few schools in Canada to be a flag bearer for the idea of positive education. So positive education has been something that's been born out of the University of Pennsylvania and made its mark initially at a great independent school in Australia. So there are several schools, including Appleby, that are working with this school in Australia, as well as members of UPenn, to develop and implement a positive education approach. What this means is quite a number of things, and it would take quite a long time to go through everything. It's something that's not just implemented in the curriculum, but how we approach relationships day to day. In terms of stages, right now it's focusing on ensuring that our staff and our parents, first of all, have a strong familiarity with positive education, and we're already seeing the trickle-down effects of that with students. Generally, in terms of seeing the staff structure at Appleby, over the past 5 years since I've been here, we've seen the introduction of an assistant vice principal for wellness. We have a director of wellness. We have 2 directors of positive education, a director of character education, and a director of inclusivity. So, just taking that staff structure as a snapshot, it's certainly telling of the level of importance here. Guidance is certainly a cornerstone to this as well, where they take solutions and strengths-based approach to educating and mentoring our students. And what this could look like in a classroom could be dependent on the teacher and the class, but it could mean scheduled brain breaks, compassionate conversations, mindfulness practices, and the development of growth mindset amongst the students. Another area is the chapel. So Appleby does have an Anglican chapel, but is quite ecumenical. We have students from 53 countries, lots of religions represented. So it becomes very much a free space for contemplation and community building. As you can see, if you ever visit our YouTube channel, you'll see chapel speeches that really show the promotion of vulnerability and self-reflection. And all of the chapel services that we do are structured on themes of our positive learner attributes. Now, during the pandemic, this has all been had to pivot quite significantly. So just a few quick points of what we've done over the past couple of months. So we've developed an online module specifically for our grade 8 students. So typically they have to do something called a presentation of learning in order to move on to grade 9. As part of that, they had to do specific modules on well-being. There are our positive education directors and director of inclusivity. I've been working to build content for weekly advisor meetings, games, lessons, and intentional activities. And every day, the school puts out what we now call Appleby Today. It's a daily newsletter, which includes the Wellbeing Corner, which could be mindful activities or intentional activities to promote well-being, mindful movements, and the phys ed department puts out physical challenges because there's again scientific evidence about the connection between physical health and mental well-being. So I'm sure that was more than 10 minutes, so I apologize.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Luke.
Thank you.
And thank you for sticking to the 10-minute duration. So I was making some notes whilst you were presenting, and something that you mentioned was that Appleby College places emphasis on mental development and student well-being. And we believe, this is something that would resonate with a lot of Nigerian families when they're selecting schools for their children. They really want a school that the child fits with academically and mentally. So pastoral care is an important component for parents to consider when making that choice. And we advise parents that you want a school where your child will thrive academically, but it's not only about the academics. The child could be doing well, but the child might not have made friends, or the child might not feel like he or she fits into the school community, and that really affects you mentally, and of course further down the line it can affect the productivity of the child. So and you mentioned that Appleby, you weren't only speaking for Appleby College. You believe that, a lot of Canadian schools, focus on, providing that necessary well-being support for students. So thank you so much for that. So we're now going to move on to John Holmes of Trinity College School.
Thank you very much, and I will just try to share my screen if this will work. I will echo the sentiment that I'm just thrilled to be here, and I thank Newbie and the team for organizing today's events and for hosting today. My name is John Holmes, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions at Trinity College School. And while I will provide a relatively brief introduction to Trinity, I've also been asked to speak today a little bit about how schools, Trinity and other schools, are preparing for the safe arrival of students, maybe if they're delayed on arriving in September, as well as just managing the health and safety of our students, and just generally addressing some questions as possible around how we're preparing for September in light of the COVID-19 impact. So to start off, I'll just give a brief introduction to Trinity. Trinity College School is in our 155th year, so long established as a boarding school in Canada, originally started to prepare what was then a boys' school for the University of Toronto, so the Trinity College School. The school now is approximately 500 students from grades 9 to grade 12. So from students 14 to 18, completing the 4-year Ontario secondary school diploma. So being located in Ontario, approximately a 1-hour drive from Toronto in the small town of Port Hope, Ontario, we provide the Ontario diploma, as well as the advanced placement curriculum and the capstone program that Luke mentioned. So certainly we are a university-focused, academically motivated and strong program where all of our students will be pursuing higher education, whether in Canada or internationally. But academics would just be one main aspect. The school would pride itself on a rigorous and balanced academic program and co-curricular program. So while I would suggest that every student that attends Trinity will sort of carve their own path or have their own signature program while they're attending the school, every student will be expected to participate in some athletics, some arts, and we have a strong commitment to community service, as well as a really focused citizenship and sort of community-focused feel and energy at the school. So we are a school that is generally looking for strong academically motivated students, but students that are excited about participating and growing and challenging themselves in all areas of that co-curricular program. I would suggest that our location is one of the features that is a real strength. So we are located outside of a small town, the town of Port Hope, which is conveniently close to Toronto, making it quite convenient for our international families to get to the school. But it is far enough from Toronto, and the town of Port Hope is a small rural town of about 5,000 people. So that allows us to have an impressive campus of over 150 acres, state-of-the-art facilities, lots of field space, green space for our program to operate, and a very calm and quiet area where our kids can easily walk off campus and head to the town of Port Hope and enjoy the nature around us. So certainly the location is one of the features that families will often will be drawn to when they're considering schools. And finally, I would say the community is something that we talk a lot about. So for us, that would be the balance of the student body. So with 500 kids, we feel that that is a great size school. We often joke that it's the perfect size of school in that it is large enough that we can offer a diverse range of academic programs. We can offer competitive sports programs. We can offer a lot to the students, and yet the school is still small enough that it has a very family feel. You'll be known at Trinity, and you can certainly be you're well taken care of and supported. The other parts of the community that we've talked about in terms of the balance would be we are predominantly boarding at about 55% boarding. So in our student body, there's usually close to 300 boarding students, usually around 280, and another 200 or so day students. So a nice mix of local day students and yet because of our critical mass in the boarding program, we truly operate as a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week boarding program. And a lovely balance of Canadian boarders, domestic boarders, as well as international students make up that community. So typically we'll have 35 countries represented on campus and a lovely diversity in the student body. So that's a brief introduction to Trinity, and I will, how do I navigate my slide? I'll talk a little bit about how schools like Trinity are preparing for September. And I think it's important to recognize that the reality is, while we are all craving answers and we are all living in a time of uncertainty in the light of COVID-19, the reality is many schools are still very much in the planning and preparation phase, as opposed to being able to outline exactly how we are planning to accommodate. However, lots of things are being planned for, and I can certainly try to address some of them. So first, I would acknowledge that many of the schools that are panelists today are part of the Canadian Accredited Independent School Organization. Many of us are part of the NAIS as well as TABS. And immediately when COVID-19 struck, schools have always had a collaborative environment and collegial environment, but certainly we looked to the organizations that we're members of, the strength of those organizations, to help us in all of the planning and preparation that we're doing. So from heads of schools to admissions to deans of academics and principals, I would suggest there are probably 5 to 10 conference calls happening on a weekly basis, making sure that all schools are striving for the best possible solutions to some difficult questions around how are we going to provide a safe transition, how are we going to open our campuses in September, and how do we maintain what makes a Canadian boarding school such a remarkable experience in light of some of the expectations of social distancing, and of course with first and foremost the safety of our students and our community in mind. So it is also important, I think, to note that in Canada, education is governed by province. So schools in Ontario will be following Ontario mandates from the Government of Ontario or health and wellness dictates in terms of how schools are responding, and that would be schools in British Columbia, schools in Quebec, schools in the East Coast will all be handling these slightly differently. And here comes the inevitable student or child interruption. I apologize. So we have health and safety first of mind as we plan and prepare, but the truth is we don't have everything set. So some of the things that we're doing to prepare for the arrival or late arrival of students and the safe arrival of students will be modifying curriculum. One of the very first things that schools had to do when we were closed in March was to create a vibrant online learning program. So the program that Trinity has evolved with is called Trinity Connects. And this was a completely virtual online platform to allow the continued education of all of our students and the successful completion of this year. The Trinity Connects model will be up and running for any students that are unable to start on campus in September. All areas of school programming are being considered and discussed as we plan for the safe opening. So the residential implications, the culinary implications, the academic programs, as well as the co-curriculars. So I highlighted one of the programs, the strength of community that Trinity provides is one of our strengths, and we wanted to replicate that as best we could in a virtual world. And so our program was the Bears at Home. So from online cooking classes to different interest groups and collaboration still happening, it was important to keep that going. So the truth is all aspects of the schools are being rethought, reconsidered, and planned for. I would say all schools are planning for an environment where we are fully opening and operating a boarding and day program. I'd say all schools are planning for an online virtual only program and a hybrid program. And that was my 10-minute warning. So I will hand over to say, if you'd like to learn more about Trinity, how we're handling, I would say these would be the links to reference. Our virtual page is a great opportunity to explore the school more. You could submit an inquiry. Our Trinity Connects is everything you want to learn a little bit more about our online program. Feel free to reach out to me. Those are my contact details, and we can provide these to Newbie to share as needed at a later date. So thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks again, Newbie, for having me.
Thank you so much, John, for your presentation. So listening to you, it's very apparent that Trinity College School is, very focused on delivering a strong and rigorous academic program for students. I know during the Q&A, I've received some questions for you with regards to your presentation. So I know parents would want to ask how your existing students have adapted to the transition from, face-to-face teaching to online teaching. So we'll discuss that during the Q&A session. If we could now move on to Joanne from Stanstead College.
Super, thank you. I will, just give me a thumbs up, Anne-Marie, you can hear me okay? Hopefully, okay.
Yes, I can.
All right,
Thank
perfect.
you.
I'm just gonna share my screen as we're doing that, and I will start here from the beginning, and I'm gonna set my timer too, John. You were really good keeping right on track, and of course, some of the things that I've been asked to speak about with regard to safety and so on, you've also spoken about, so just move this down here. So there will be some repetition a little bit in what we speak about, but I'll tell you a little bit more about Stanstead first for a few minutes, and then talk a little bit more about safety in Canada as far as a response to COVID-19, which of course everyone is asking about. So I'll start by referring to Stanstead a little bit. Stanstead is the only school that's on the line here today that is outside of Ontario. We are in the province of Quebec. And we are, hold on a second, I'm just gonna go, I'll start by here. We're in the province of Quebec, so closest to the city of Montreal. We are a few hours, it's about a 1-hour flight from Montreal to Toronto, and a drive from Montreal to Stanstead is about 2 hours. So we're in the eastern part of Canada, further east than the Ontario schools, and literally right on the border to the United States. So on my screen, you can see that Stanstead looks like it's right on the border. We are actually about 500 meters from the state of Vermont. So we actually do have a lot of activities. Right now, the border between Canada and the US is closed with the exception of essential travel. So currently there's not a lot of, going back and forth. But normally our students can and do travel back and forth and do regular activities both in Canada and in the US. Though that will be mitigated a little bit this year. There will probably not be as many things cross-border, and most of the things will be in our region, at least in the first half of the school year next year. But that's where we're located, and I'm actually just going to go back, I'm going to go back and forth to a few things. So Stanstead was founded in 1872. We are almost at our 150th birthday this year, and being part of the border community, if you look on the screen, the picture of the campus that you see on the bottom right here, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, I'll assume you can, but this is our campus. And you see right here, this is the border right here. So you can literally see the border on the other side of this set of trees here, and that's Vermont. And we are nestled in a small town called Stanstead, right on the border. And being in Quebec, many of you already know that Stanstead is, that Quebec is a French-speaking province. If you don't know, I'm telling you that now. Stanstead is a French-speaking province, and we are in an area of Quebec. The cities like Montreal, but also the cities that are close to the border, are very bilingual. So Stanstead is both English and French. So if our students, all of our students do get the opportunity to learn French, which I think is a fantastic addition to the Canadian experience, but students don't need French in order to come to the school. So although we require it, and it is a mandatory part of our curriculum, different than other schools in Canada, students do not need to have French to come here, but they will get a chance to learn French and use it. So it's not something they just learn in the classroom. You can go into any store or any restaurant in our area and speak in English, and they will respond to you in English. If you speak in French, they will respond to you in French. So a really nice balance here of Canada's two official languages. And Stanstead is a very small community. So we are 245 students currently this year. In a normal year next year, we would be just over 250. We expect that there will be a number of deferrals, so we'll be less than that, and we're anticipating about 225. So still a nice small number of students. Our class size works well in terms of planning for. We expect there will be the mandate of social distancing, so we certainly can do that in our classrooms quite easily. And we have a very small ratio of students to teachers, and every student does have an academic advisor. So that small atmosphere, when I think all the Canadian schools who are here today, we all have that family atmosphere that is so important in boarding schools. That's really what all families, I believe, are seeking when they're looking at a boarding school. They want their child to be really enveloped and to be really feeling that family experience while getting the strong academics abroad, and Stanstead definitely does that. Our culture is definitely like that. So more than 60% of our teachers live on campus, and in the areas you can see on the screen now, in the areas around campus, and really the students are very well taken care of, like a big family. A couple of things I'll just point out on this slide, just so you get a sense of this, is that Stanstead has all the seasons. So you see two of those. You saw on the first slide, summer, winter, and fall, winter, and spring. You have the beautiful colors, but we definitely celebrate winter on our campus, and we do a lot of things in our area to celebrate that. So students get to ski. We have an outdoor skating rink. We have an indoor rink. The facilities indoor and outdoor for both winter and fall and summer sports are quite phenomenal. But I think it's really important to understand the full Canadian experience at Stanstead is really with the language, with the community in the area, and definitely with the climate. So the number, I'll just go quickly because I do have my timer on, so I know where I'm at. The majority of our students are from Canada and the US. Most of our students are boarding, so again, we're smaller, but the majority of our students are boarding, with about 65 to 70 day students as well. So our day students come from rural areas, and they come to the school both from Canada and the US. Actually, we have international day students, which is kind of unique to a Canadian school or any school, because they cross the border every day to come to the school. And girls and boys, it's about 55, 45, a little, next year it'll be a little closer to an even split. Our international student population, I just shared this slide so you could get a sense of our school community. I also like this picture with Quentin, who was our head prefect last year, and now he's at Boston. He's just finished his first year at Boston University, with the different ages as well. So we have grade 7 through grade 12 at Stanstead. So we don't begin at grade 9, we begin earlier at grade 7. So we do have 12-year-olds like Ava, the one in the bottom right in this picture, and Quentin, who's the top one. And there's a lot of interaction with, big brothers and big sisters with our younger and our older students. So I think that's really important to share. And I wanted to share Laura's picture too, for two reasons. One, Laura is from Lagos originally. Her family has now immigrated to Canada. She's the oldest of 3 girls who have all come to Stanstead. She is currently at McGill. And McGill University in Montreal is one of our most popular sending schools. So one of the universities that many of our students matriculate to. University of Toronto is another important destination for our students, and then many other universities. But that is our focus, is preparing students for universities in Canada and then the United States. Primarily. The other thing I want to mention about Laura is that she is super happy to speak with families. She's done some work for us and connects with families about Stanstead, so she'd be very happy to do that. Her younger sister, Helen, just graduated from Stanstead, is also going to McGill, and the youngest of the girls, Ella, I think you'll see in this last picture after this, is also at the school. So there you see our campus. I'll just finish with that one. You can see the full campus and Canada and the USA a little bit there to get a sense of where we are. And as I have this slide up, I don't have a slide with some outlines, but I wanted to touch on a little bit further than what John was saying in terms of safety with COVID and all of the uncertainties that every family is experiencing looking abroad. We're obviously, all of our schools are looking short-term and long-term. So the short-term really being September opening. The majority of our schools are planning exactly what was described before. So having several models. So if students are not able to get to campus, they are able to do a hybrid or on distance education from home until they can get to campus. We are doing that, as well as an opportunity for students to do online learning or distance education until they can be here, or longer term. But what all of our schools are doing, public health is provincial in Canada. So really, every province is slightly different. The number of cases and the approach is slightly different. And so in Quebec, there's a hotspot in Montreal currently, but the outlying areas like our area in Quebec is very low. We've had no new cases in 4 weeks in our area. And currently the COVID numbers in many rural areas is very, very low. But we all follow, that to say, all of our schools follow public health guidelines for scenario planning and for planning the opening of our school. So how that will work, the quarantine period, hygiene, distancing, whether we have masks and that kind of thing, all of those things we're really following Canada's and each province's protocols. But I think the important thing to know about Canada is that they really conform with Canadians do follow regulations and really conform with what public health are recommending by and large. And I think that's really important to understand. So the safety factor, there's risk everywhere in the world now with COVID. That is a reality, and we're going to have to live with that. But mitigating that risk and making sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to keep our population safe, all of our schools and Canada-wide, is a really big top priority for all of our schools. So that's my 10 minutes and let's say 30 seconds. I'll pass it off back to my colleagues. But thank you so much for your time and attention. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for your presentation. When you presented on, safety guidelines that Canadian schools were following, I feel that, yes, Nigerian parents want to be reassured that, come whether it's for 2020 or whenever it's safe, for students to travel to Canada to resume classes. They want to be reassured that, yes, Canadian boarding schools are going to be adhering to public health guidelines and regulations, and that their children are going to be safe, and social distancing, the social distancing philosophy, would be practiced. Health and safety and the management of that in classrooms and accommodation in the canteens, is very important for parents to learn about, given the current pandemic. Thank
And I
you
think
for that.
I'll just sum up by saying that all of our schools, the schools that are here today, and all of the Canadian, the CASE accredited boarding schools, we collaborate weekly in all of our groupings. So there's a lot of collaboration in planning, in discussing, in putting things into place. So there will be a lot of consistency in Canadian schools, in my opinion.
Yes, thank you. So we're now going to move on to Tracy Culp from Appleby College.
I'm going to try to share my screen and see if we can get this set up the way I need it. I hope everyone can share.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. I do have quite a few slides, but I have also followed John's lead and set my timer as well. So I'm going to get through them as best we can. And I know it's being recorded, and Newbie certainly knows a lot about all of the schools on the call. So they can be a great resource for anybody watching this, maybe at a later date that needs more information. So Albert College is located 2 hours east of Toronto. We are probably one of the smaller schools in all of the CASE membership, in that we have about 170 students in total, and that's from grade 7 through grade 12. We are actually 10 years older than the country of Canada, so celebrating 162 years this year. I think something that works really, sorry, I got ahead of myself here. There is the map, and there is where we're located in Belleville. Much like other people have mentioned, we're also in a rural town of Belleville, which is 50,000 people. Our cases of COVID are quite low. The province of Ontario is opening on a regional approach. So in some of the more rural areas, which Belleville would fall into, as of tomorrow, June 12th, we will start to open up a little bit so that we can move a little more freely throughout our area. Of course, still observing physical distancing rules and all of the protocols that have to be in place, but we'll be able to move around a little more freely starting tomorrow. Being 2 hours from Toronto, we recognize, families quite often will send their child without them accompany them, especially and in September, if people are able to travel, students will have to come on their own, and that parents won't be necessarily open to travel this distance. So we have always and will continue to pick our students up at the airport, bring them directly to campus. So there isn't a worry of parents having to try to navigate how to get 2 hours to the school when they arrive in Canada. So international school, this current school year, we had 4 students from Nigeria joining us, and we have plans committed, a few more students also next year joining that number. So Nigeria will be well represented, we're hoping, in September. Again, a lot of this being all CASE schools, we have very many similarities, but the few things that do make us different is, I think, what we're all focusing on today. Faculty and staff, many of them live on campus, smaller class sizes, post-secondary preparation, and weekend programming are all important for our boarders. Our school body follows about 60% are boarding students, and the other 40 are day students. This slide I left in because many of our students are boarding students when we're traveling abroad. They're really interested in what do we do on the weekends. Being a boarding school, we do offer weekend programming all weekends. There's activities for them to do. Some students will, choose to do their own things with their friends. Others want to get involved, but we do leave it up to students. Our residential team meet with the students about every 7 weeks and plan the next 7 weeks. So we're constantly checking in with the students to ensure what we're doing on the weekends are the things that they are interested in doing. I highly doubt we'll be able to accommodate all of these things in September with restrictions over COVID, but in the past, these are things that we have been able to do. We have a boys' residence and a girls' residence because we are a co-ed school. Graham Hall and Baker are our boys' residence, and this is a typical room and the common space for the boys. And this is Victoria Manor, which is where all of our boarding girls do live. And again, typical room and some common spaces. As other schools have mentioned, all of our students do have an academic advisor. It's a great liaison for the parents to be in contact on the academic side of things. So the parents really do have a good solid one point of contact where they can get any information, and the students feel that they always have somebody in their corner that they can check in with if they have issue. They have certainly somebody that they know will be able to help them through any issue they might be having. Albert College celebrates what we call our 5 A's, and the next 5 slides are going to speak to those, and I'm not going to read them. I don't think that that's something that is a good use of time, but I'm going to go through them quickly. Academics, of course, being in Ontario, the students do receive an Ontario Secondary School diploma, but many of them achieve, a lot more. They get additional AP credits. They've got extensive volunteering and active citizenship hours that support that. Arts, all of our students do participate in the arts program 3 times a week in the middle of the academic day. You are doing some type of art, and there are 3 different art terms. So you get to experience 3 different arts throughout the school year, unless you decide to be in our theater production, which does run the entire year as your credit. Athletics, all of our students do participate in athletics. It can be team sports, it can be individual sports, but we do, it is a requirement of being at the school, and that is done 3 times a week at the end of the academic day. Active citizenship, so there are lots of opportunities to help locally as well as international travel. So this is something that is deeply rooted in our culture. It's nice because students in grade 7 and 8 look forward to this trip, and there's lots of presentations done in chapel and lots of information out there to get them excited about when they're finally in grade 9 and they're eligible to do these trips. Adventure. So all of our students are involved in some type of adventure. The very first one for us is camp. You arrive on campus the first Tuesday in September, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we go to a national park of Canada, and we spend 3 days with all of our teachers, all of our students, whether it's day, boarding, new, returning, we're all there together. And it's really not an academic setting. It's for us to get to know the students, them get to know us. So it's always interesting for them to see, their math teacher out fishing with them and connecting in what interests us as faculty and staff outside of the classroom. Post-secondary, so our students, we are a university prep school. They are going on to top universities in Canada and throughout the world. I would say probably 80% of our graduates do go on to university here in Canada. Scholarships and bursaries, which the reason I left this slide in there is that there is a picture of our 4 Nigerians on this slide in particular, and it's certainly something we have even more expanded our financial aid package because we know many families are affected by COVID financially. So we want to make a school education abroad something that is available to many more people. My next 3 slides will include what Albert College is doing in particular on our reopening plan, safety for students, and how we're going to ensure when we get the green light to go ahead for travel that we are ready. I can only speak to Albert College. I know we have been on calls with many other schools, and there are lots of schools that are, following the same. We've kind of done a think tank, and we're all following along the same plan here. So for us, obviously, just to have everybody return, and we'll do our social distancing, but we will have everybody on campus. Option B will be a hybrid of the 2, and option C will be continuing on as we currently are with remote learning, and then seeing when we can travel. Can we, maybe part year, we'll change over to in-class, in-person lessons. So the topic that I was selected for was keeping students safe on campus. So I've gone through, we have a committee where we're talking about reopening and what are we going to do. There's lots of points here. We were already a boarding school where all students have their own rooms. So that was already something we could do without having to worry about it. The washrooms throughout the school and residence are going to touchless fixtures, as well as physical distancing protocol. all of the classrooms have already been measured out and set up with physical distancing in place. Hallways where we can are going to be one directional. So if, I don't know about Nigeria, but here in Ontario in particular, if you go in any store, anywhere, everything is all one directional. So we are going to continue that on in the school. Our health center will be tripled in size, and so we can prepare for an outbreak. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but we have an isolation unit and we're ready to go with that. We have deep cleaning protocol and sanitizing machines ready so that when we have to transition to different spaces, those can be cleaned before a new group of people would enter. Specific entry points, hand sanitization. We're working on the students staying in the same classroom and the teachers rotating. That way there's less cross-contamination. So as much as we can, I'm already at my time, but I will quickly go through the last slides here.
That's fine.
And so we're also working on, are students going to require trauma counseling? Is there going to be anything that maybe has been traumatic for them in being in isolation or coming to a completely unknown? Typically in the past, Appleby College had our students do their own laundry. That was part of getting ready for university. We're now looking to outsource all laundry and going to a simplified uniform so that it can be easily laundered and we can remain everything sanitized and ready to go. So we are in the process of rolling out our 14-day quarantine protocol. As of yesterday, all passengers arriving in Canada had to adhere to 14-day quarantine. So what we are doing is we've worked with some local hotels. We have rooms secured. Each student will have their own room. We'll have our residential staff on site at all times. Their meals will be delivered directly to their rooms. We are scheduling outdoor time for exercise and fresh air. And if there are siblings or people coming from the same household, they actually can share the room. The cost will be the responsibility of the parents, but we will charge them accordingly. So we'll take care of paying the hotels. At the end of the 14-day quarantine, we'll have students move into their own room and still adhering to physical distancing protocol. That is the end. I'm going to rush through at the end, probably the most important part. And again, I think it's important to state that as of today, June 10th, these are the rules we're working with. As if you're watching this recording at a later date, this information could be out of date in that things are changing on a weekly basis. So as of today, these are the plans we're working on.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for your presentation. It's very clear, that Appleby College has rigorous processes in place to ensure the safety of students, come resumption at school. Another thing that you spoke about was scholarship opportunities, and that's a very exciting word for Nigerian families. And like you correctly stated, a lot of families have been affected financially by the pandemic, whether that being through the fluctuating exchange rates. Some parents may have, been relieved of their jobs. Others may have had to have pay cuts, etc. So it's a bit of a tough time financially for families. So I think during the Q&A session, it would be lovely, to have you just explain what the criteria is, for the award of scholarships or discounts. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Q&A session now. So I'm just going to check the chat box to see if we've got any questions there. I've actually been receiving private questions. Okay, so I don't see anything in the chat box, so I'll just read out the questions I received. Okay, so sorry, Ma.
There's a question. There's a question.
Oh, great. Okay. John from Trinity College says he would also be happy to speak about financial assistance. Thank you so much. Maybe we should start with that. Okay, so, yes, whoever wants to go first, and just elaborate more on the financial support available to families during these challenging times.
I'm happy to start. I do oversee the financial assistance portfolio at Trinity College School and have been working with families that have been significantly financially impacted in light of COVID-19. So I'll keep it brief, but I'm happy to just sort of provide some context. I would say most schools, Trinity's being one of them, will have what we will refer to as financial assistance dollars available to support families. And under the umbrella of financial assistance, there's usually two main categories. There's merit-based scholarships, and schools will approach scholarships differently, so it will be important for families to do their research. And then I would suggest most schools will offer the bulk of their financial assistance in the form of a bursary. And a bursary typically means that the support is what is called needs-based. So it is designed specifically to support families who are unable to afford the full cost of the education. And I think that's really where it lines up very well with the COVID-19 reality that we're facing. Families are feeling a greater financial need. Their financial ability to pay has been impacted, and that is where a needs-based program can kick in and provide support. So again, most schools will be consistent here. Students first apply to the school. If accepted, they can go through an independent third-party financial assistance application. The financial awards committees at schools will then look at the family's what is called need, their demonstrated need, and can then be in a position to offer support. So there would be cases right now with Trinity College school families where they have gone through an appeal process. Maybe they have suffered financially right now, and so they can appeal for additional support, or families that have been able to pay full price in the past are currently unable to do so and are applying for assistance at the first time. So those are all things that are being addressed on a school-by-school basis. And I will just then add, certainly scholarships are a fantastic way for families to be supported, but you do really want to look, it would be on a case-by-case basis how different schools handle scholarships. And I'll just give an example. Trinity College School has a range of scholarships that range in size, but they typically come with very clear criteria. So an award might be dedicated solely for a student from Quebec or a student from anywhere in the world, or there could be criteria set. So anyway, there's a start to financial assistance at case schools, and happy to speak more with families on that topic.
Thank you so much for your response, John. It was, yes, very enlightening. So another question we have is with regards to virtual learning. So it's clear that your boarding schools are all planning to reopen, in September, whether that's through a blended online learning approach, or strictly online learning, or face-to-face classes. So with regards to virtual learning, we have a question. So the parent is asking how your existing students have adapted to face-to-face learning being launched online, and whether students have been able to connect to teachers whilst learning online? Have students been engaged? Have students been motivated? Has the transition process been quick and seamless for existing students? So if any of the panelists could address this. Joanne, thank you.
Okay, I'll address it, and I'll try to keep it succinct. All of our schools are face-to-face places. We are places where the experience and being in the classroom is what we're all about. So I know with all of our schools transitioning to fully distance education or virtual learning, so many different words for it. We call it distance education at Stanstead. That it was as quick as we could do it. And I think most schools were really putting a lot of thought into how they would do it properly and try to maintain not just the high level academics and the face-to-face online time with students, but also those other things that are so important at a boarding school. So those connections with their housemates from their residences, with whether it's activities to keep fit or things from their coaches and that kind of thing, or whether it was little online games with their advisor groups and that kind of thing. A lot of that was also put into place with the online learning platform for all of our schools and for Stanstead as well. And so staying connected was really the key. Seamless would not have described any of our schools, I'm sure, because there's a lot of there were a lot of things we had to learn as we went along. Many of our schools did even collaboratively big surveys with our parents and our students, getting feedback as we were going through this process and as we were transitioning 2 weeks after we started or 4 weeks after we started or both, to get the feedback for parents who were really doing a lot of the parenting at home and support for the academic program. It was, by and large, if we look at the Canadian feedback from those surveys from parents, it was very, very good. Canadian schools, our schools, did a really good job to meet the needs of the students and do it in the best way possible. So seamless, no, but did we react and change and modify what we were doing to best meet the needs of the students? Absolutely. And to support the parents because they were in a situation that was really, really different. So I think all of our schools, I can speak with all of us, that we're really prepared to have that hybrid model if it needs to happen in September, or if it needs to happen for a period of time next year. I think all our schools are better, more ready to do that, to offer that than they were before, and to offer that blended learning. So if there are students who are sick and can't be at our school for a period of time, if they're delayed for study permit processing and that kind of thing, all of our schools, I think, are much better prepared to do a hybrid, blended, or none of us are planning to be fully online. I don't think yet. I think we're all planning to be together. And so the hybrid is what most schools are looking at. But I think we're really well positioned, all of our schools, to do that. So I feel, I would, as a parent, feel reassured for any of our case schools, for parents, what if, and will the academic program be strong enough? Not only, I think, will the academic program be strong enough, I think that parents will also have all of the other things that they could possibly have with the connectedness, with activities, with doing things together, that boarding schools are well known for.
Thank you so much for that, Joanne. So just, jumping on what you mentioned, I think, the concern that parents had was, okay, with regards to online learning, would students, receive the same academic experience, academic expertise, welfare support and opportunities for success online compared to if they were enrolled on, the face-to-face curriculum, but from all the presentations by our panelists, it's clear that you're committed, to delivering a very strong academic and co-curricular program for all your students, through, your hybrid, blended programs. Okay, so another question that we have is with regards to what is the situation concerning visa applications. So usually, students are advised to apply for their Canadian study permit about 3 to 4 months before the course start date. So obviously, the timelines, would have been impacted by the pandemic. How are your schools adapting to these changes, with regards to students' visa applications? So anybody could answer this as well. Thank you, Luke.
I'll try my best, and again, I think it's important to just reiterate that none of us we're not immigration lawyers, we're not immigration consultants, so we're also learning as we go, but we're also being as well informed as possible. So for example, yesterday, I suspect some of us were involved in a national webinar involving a top immigration lawyer who was giving some insight from his perspective. And the truth is that things are changing all the time. And to Tracy's point earlier, what I say now might be totally different next week, because orders in council revolving around immigration issues are kind of fast and furious. So what we are able to say as of right now is that students that at least have a letter approving their study permit prior to noon of March 18th, re-entering the country shouldn't be an issue. Even if they have an expiration date on their study permit that's in September, if it's valid, or they have a letter of approval that's valid upon entry, then it should be okay. Certainly, we're hearing that visa offices are opening back up and have been opening back up. We are hearing of students that are receiving their visas. We do have a certain amount of faith that it will be a priority for the government as it's safe to do so, because quite frankly, whether it's independent schools or public schools or post-secondary institutions, international students are a really core part of the Canadian social environment and frankly, the economic environment as well. So we can't say with any certainty how quickly visas will be processed, but we are aware that they are being reopened, that centers are being reopened, and that visas are being processed depending on the region. I would just highly suggest that people follow the IRCC website. And in fact, the immigration lawyer yesterday suggested that even their Facebook and Twitter of IRCC and individual visa offices are sometimes the quickest way to get up-to-date information from your area.
Thank you so much for that, Luke. So another question that I noted down. Okay, sorry. So it's with regards to the WAEC examination in Nigeria. So this has been postponed, and the exact date as to when Nigerian students are going to be able to sit for the exams is still yet to be announced. So we had a question from a student who said, what would be the admission requirements, for Canadian boarding schools for Nigerian students? Are they going to be assessed based on, the reports that they have from their secondary schools, or, what is the admission process going to entail?
I can try to answer that. Again, I think this is going to be one that that is going to be somewhat school dependent. I would generally think that most schools are going to be re-looking at admissions requirements. Certainly, many universities quite early on came out with statements, at least in Canada and the US, that recognizes restrictions placed because of the pandemic, that they will have to alter their criteria. You know, some schools do have standardized tests that may be available online, and they might want to use those as criteria. Speaking for Appleby, we have stopped using standardized tests as of last year, and so ultimately we'll be looking at whatever academic proof, for lack of a better word, we can get our hands on. So without WAEC exam results, then yeah, we would probably want to look more closely at any secondary school results, whether that's a series of report cards, perhaps examples of tests or essays. But I think the key is that we're all going to have a certain level of flexibility as admissions offices going forward.
Thank you so much for that, Luke. I mean, I would like to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists, Joanne, Luke, Tracy, and John. All your presentations were very in-depth and enlightening, and you know, we as counselors and agents and our parents and students who are logged into this session have really gained insights into the contingency measures that you have in place currently, and you plan to implement further down the line to ensure that students are able to complete their programs uninterrupted, and to also protect their health, their safety, and their well-being. I'd like to ask if each one of you had any additional remarks that you wanted to give before I pass on to Mrs. Omonobi, who's going to give the vote of thanks.
I'd like to just make one comment.
Yes, please.
I would say for families in Nigeria, or truly for families anywhere in the world, when they're thinking about international education, of course, they have the world at their disposal and it's making big choices. And I would say for families that choose Canada, there are a number of main reasons, but obviously the safety, the security of the country, the openness, the multicultural feel of the country, the very welcoming nature is one. And in light of the situation that we're living through and likely living in the next couple of years, of course, the strength of our health system, the strength of our, just those strengths, the nature, the environment, will all continue to be a real strength. And I would say what every representative has said today is that education at their school is more than just academic. It's about student well-being. It's about engagement in arts and athletics, and certainly replicating that in an online environment is challenging, but it's what all schools are striving to continue to do. It's that community piece. And it is, again, one of the real strengths of the Canadian education is that well-roundedness that these schools can offer and will continue to strive to offer. So I do need to leave promptly at 11:30 for another meeting. So if I have to leave early, I would just say once again, thanks so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to the day I can return and meet in person in the Newbie office, and then meet some great Nigerian families. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, John, for your time today. We are extremely grateful to have your input. So if we could, I don't know if Tracy or Luke or Joanne have any additional comments that they would like to give.
My heartfelt thanks as well. I think this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for hosting us. It's really been a pleasure, and I'll echo what John said. I think that no family will go wrong when they choose a great Canadian boarding school. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
just to add, it's all kind of along the same theme, but you know, we're all going through this together. Great agencies like Newbie, the schools, the families, the students, we're all trying to navigate this together. And I think the key in all of this is going to be a degree of mutual trust, and that, you know, all of our schools, all of these so all of the panelists that you have here are representing independent schools. That, you know, nobody's making a profit. We're in the not-for-profit sector, and we're all about education and the development of the positive development of children. So, you know, as we're all kind of working through these things, I do think keeping a sense of mutual trust and transparency is going to be important. So making sure that with any school that you're looking at, just keep the conversation open.
Thank you very much, Luke. And Tracy, did you have anything to add?
I'd just like to say thank you for hosting us. It's great to be able to connect with Newbie again, new families, and of course see my colleagues in Canada. Again, we're all navigating this in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our children's lives. So, you know, we've just got to keep moving forward and doing what's right for all involved. And I know that Canadian schools will be an amazing experience for the students that get to join us in whatever capacity that's going to be. I know that it'll be amazing for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I just wanted to add that this session has been recorded all this while, and we'll definitely be sharing it with all our parents and students who were unable to log into the session. And then also the 4 panelists, their schools are all partners of Newbie Education. And, you know, should you have any additional questions for each of the representatives, Newbie Education would be happy to connect you with any one of the school representatives. So I would now like to pass on to Mrs. Omonobi, the Executive Director of Newbie Education.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. We have successfully come to the end of this, and we said we just want to thank God for the informative session that we have. We thank everyone that has taken time to connect to this program, our parents, and our partners that have taken time also to come and inform us of their contingency measures and about their schools. So we thank you so much. We thank our sponsor, FCMB, and our team, Marie and her Newbie team that have worked so hard to get this thing put together. I just want to let you know a few things. One is, Marie touched that we are going to share these recordings, not just to people who registered but couldn't make it, but to people who are here already, because there's no way you could have taken notes to cover, you know, to get the information. So we're going to send you the recordings. We also want to let you know that we can arrange visual meetings with you and our partners if you want further information. Just email us, we'll arrange the visual meetings for you. We know that it helps to have one-on-one discussions. We also want to to say that people who have good income stream and have very good jobs, but they cannot afford to pay the fees upfront. If you have problem in that area, you could approach FCMB and they will be able to tell you how they can assist you with bridging finance and all the assistance that they give. We are committed to maintaining honest and enduring relationships with our parents, whose word of mouth have contributed immensely to our success story. And we are happy to be part of your success story and your world success story as well. Now that we have seen all the questions have been answered, I presume I was immensely blessed, and I know that you got all your questions answered. We now want to see the applications rolling. So please let us get your applications coming in. Canada is safe for you. You've heard from the horse's mouth. So on this note, I say thank you once more for being present today. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ma. So once again, thank you to all our parents, our students, our 4 panelists for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend this afternoon with us. It has been an honor, to have you join our online event. So we wish you all a productive day, and please continue to keep well and safe. And we will all come out of this global crisis stronger and better. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Joanne. Bye, Luke. Bye, John. Bye, Tracy.
Good to see all of you again.
Thank you so much, Rose. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Bye.
Bye, all.